Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being a part of this webinar. My name is Rahim Bukhari, and I'm a trainer at Change Institutes International. This is going to be a webinar on the IELTS speaking module, okay? And we're going to see some tips and tricks, and we're also going to see the format of the IELTS speaking module. And, well, in the process, learn how IELTS speaking can be cracked, okay? So, in this webinar, we are going to discuss the following. For those of you who don't know what IELTS is, and also for those of you who did not attend my previous webinars, I'm going to give you an introduction on IELTS, a very quick one. Then we are moving on to the intro to the IELTS speaking module. Okay, and moving on, we are going into the part 1, 2, and 3. We're going to discuss each of these parts of the speaking test. And we are also going to discuss a few tips and do's and don'ts about the IELTS speaking test. At the end, I will be giving you an assignment so that you can practice your IELTS speaking skills. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. All right, so this is the entire webinar in a nutshell. All right. Okay, so let's quickly go into the intro to IELTS. IELTS, as we know, is the International English Language Testing System. It is basically for the non-native speakers of English willing to migrate to an English-speaking country. Okay, so all those people who are from a country that doesn't speak English, they have to give IELTS as a proficiency test. Okay, it was established in the year 1989, and it is jointly managed by British Council, IDP Australia, and Cambridge Assessment English. All right, so the countries that you can apply for, if you want to migrate to or study, there are a lot of countries that accept IELTS. There's Britain, there's Ireland, there's Canada, there's Australia, New Zealand, Netherlands, there's Germany, there's also the USA. So if you want to study at a university in any of these countries, or if you want to work in any of these countries, or simply migrate there and live there as a resident, you need to pass the IELTS exam. Okay, all right. Moving on, there are two testing modes for IELTS. The first one is the computer-based test, where you are giving your IELTS exam before a computer. And the second one is the traditional paper-based exam, where you go and write the exam with 300 more students. Okay. There is no minimum score in IELTS, so there is no passing or failing in IELTS. But you always need to keep in mind that your profile requires a particular IELTS score, based on your immigration points, whatever you have. Based on that, you will need an IELTS score. Or if you're applying for a university, you will need to find out what cutoff of IELTS that university needs. Okay. And the scoring in IELTS is based on something called band scores. So these band scores are testing your proficiency as to how much you know English. Okay, so band 1 would be for a non-user of English who does not know English at all. Moving on to 2, 3, 4, the proficiency increases as you go up. And band 9, as you see, is for an expert user who knows how to structure sentences in English and present English in a proper fashion. Okay. Then after the IELTS exam, you will, if you're giving the computer-based test or you have attempted the paper-based test, the test report form or the report card will be sent to you to your address, and the results will be announced in 13 days for the paper-based test and 5 or 7 days for those who have attempted the computer-based test. Okay, so if you wish to get your scores earlier, you can attempt the computer-based exam. All right. IELTS has two major modules, academic and general training. Academic is for students who wish to apply at universities overseas. And general training is for those who wish to work in another country or who want to move in permanently as a permanent resident. Okay. So IELTS has four parts. So both these modules have four parts: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So your proficiency is tested on all these four modes. Okay. For more information about IELTS, and if you want to book a test, you can log on to the website www.idp.com/global/IELTS. Okay, this was all about the introduction to IELTS. If you have any questions, you can visit the website, and all your questions will be answered. All right. Okay, moving on, we are diving into the IELTS speaking test. A lot of students have concerns about this test. Okay, a lot of students fumble, a lot of students get scared, they get nervous, they hit a block, they don't know what to speak. All of these problems our students, our candidates face during the speaking test. But let me tell you something: speaking test is not difficult. Okay, it's not even tricky, because everything that you speak in the speaking test is generic. Okay, all the questions and all the topics in discussion are generic. Everybody knows about what they're talking about. The only thing is you need to know what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. Okay, that's the key for the IELTS speaking test. The entire test. All right. Now let's see a little bit of an introduction on the speaking test. It's common for both academic and general training people. All right. So you don't have to write. You don't have to attend a different exam if you are academic or general training. It's common. It's the same. Okay. And the duration of this test is 11 to 14 minutes. Okay, that's all. You don't spend more than 15 minutes in the IELTS center. Okay, you are out after 15 minutes. Okay, so you are there. The test is for 11 to 14 minutes, and it's divided into three subparts. Okay, part one is a general introduction about yourself, and the examiner may ask you general questions based on your life. Okay. Part two of the test is going to be a topic which you will be speaking for 3 to 4 minutes. Uh, I'm sorry, not 3 to 4 minutes. The entire round is 3 to 4 minutes. You will be speaking on the topic for 2 minutes. You will have 1 minute to take down notes and one other minute, so for the examiner to ask you round off questions. Okay. I'll be discussing more in detail in my next slides about these three parts individually. Part three is a discussion round. Okay, it's for 4 to 5 minutes. Okay, where you will be answering questions asked by the examiner pertaining to the topic that you spoke of in part two. Okay, so this is the basic structure of the speaking test. Now let's go into how to crack. Okay, all right. Now, part one, it's a general round. Okay, like I said, the examiner is going to ask you questions about yourself. Okay, about your hometown, or about what you do for a living. Okay, or where you studied. So all these questions are going to be in part one. Sometimes you might even be asked to introduce yourself. Okay, like in any other interview. Okay, most of the time it's introducing yourself, but it's followed by questions which are generic in this way, about your hometown, about your job, etc. Okay, so the examiner, once you enter the examination center and you go into the room where you have to give the test, the examiner is on it, sitting in in her chair, and you'll be sitting right opposite her or him. Okay, the first thing that he or she asks, is for your ID. So you present your passport, you sit down, okay, and then the examiner introduces himself or herself, okay, and she switches on a recorder, okay, to record your voice. The entire for the entire duration of the test, your voice is recorded. Okay, she turns on the recorder and she asks you, you are starting the test now. Okay, so the part one, okay, generic questions about yourself. Let's look at an example. Now, the examiner is asking you, let's talk about your hometown or village. Okay, now in this discussion, you have sub questions. You have what kind of place it is. Okay, what's the most interesting part of your town or village? What kinds of jobs do people do in your village or town? And would you say it is a good place to live? Now, if you look at these four questions, they are very general. Okay, they're asking something that you have experienced in your life, your hometown. Okay, even if you live in a town or a city or a village, doesn't matter. You speak about that. Okay, and that's the beauty of this first round. The first round is to relax the candidate, okay, so that he or she can talk about his or her experience in that hometown or whatever the questions are pertaining to. Okay, so you are giving your experience, all right, as to what you feel about your hometown. Okay, now how to go about answering these questions. Now, that's the second part. The very first tip: always be descriptive with your answers. Okay, always. You shouldn't answer in one or two words and be done with it. Okay, this is a big no-no in the IELTS speaking test. No answer is one or two words long. It's always descriptive. Okay, describe your answer. Okay, what kind of place it is, your hometown. You could say, oh, it is a beautiful place. If I'm talking about Bangalore, for example, okay, oh, it is a beautiful place. It was once known as the Garden City, but then it had a huge wave of the information technology industry coming into the city, and boom, the next thing you know, the Garden City has turned into one of the most busiest cities in the world. Okay, so a description is what is necessary here. Okay, you are describing that place. You're not just finishing that off in one or two words. You're not saying, what kind of place is it? Oh, it's good. You're not saying that. Okay, you always need to be descriptive. All right, now let's look at some tips as to how to go about this part. So one of the tips was being descriptive. Second, you need to talk normally and naturally. Okay, use formal language, but don't go too heavy on your words. Okay, don't use harsh words, don't use heavy words or complicated words, especially if you don't know the meaning. All right, so talk normally, talk naturally, but remain formal. Okay, just like how you talk to any other person in English. All right, remember, this is not a job interview. Okay, you are not going to get a job here, so you don't have to be that formal. Okay, you can be a little formal and you can be as natural as you can. Okay, second, be honest, because this round is about your life. The examiner is asking you questions about your life. So be natural about it and be honest about your approach. Okay, you don't have to embellish facts. Okay, don't try and introduce something that never happened. All right, be natural. Okay, then this is a very important point, the next one that I'm going to discuss. Don't be too fast. All right, when you're speaking to somebody, all right, you always have to control your pace. Now, there is a misconception that, some people think that if you talk too fast, okay, it means that you really understand the language. That's not so. All right. When you talk fast, it's the contrary. People know that you do not know how to speak that language. You are trying to hide it. Okay. So don't talk too fast. And talking too fast makes no sense either, because you are jeopardizing your own strategy of, communication. You are actually putting that in danger. How? If you're talking too fast, your brain is processing information fast. There is a good possibility that you might lose out on words and sentences and even the context in which you're speaking at. All right. You might actually forget about it. Okay. So it's very confusing if you talk too fast, and the other person is not going to comprehend anything you say. Right. So talk normally, talk with a steady pace. Don't talk too slow. Don't talk too fast. Okay. This is the second tip. Very important. All right. The next one, relax. It's not a job interview, like I said. Okay. It's questions about yourself, about your experience as a human being, right? So you are talking about yourself. So you can be relaxed and you can be honest about it. All right. Now, when you are in the speaking test, one of the most important criteria is fluency. Okay. You must achieve fluency when you are speaking. Okay. How do you achieve that? Never, ever, ever, okay, speak in points. For example, now you're introducing yourself. My name is Rahim. I am from Bangalore. I am an MBA degree holder. I work at so and so. I moved to Toronto in March. These are pointers. Okay. This is not a sentence. Sentences, if you want to achieve fluency, need to be connected. How do you do that? You use something called sentence connectors. Okay. They can be conjunctions or adverbs. Okay. This makes your sentence more fluent, and it bridges two sentences together. Okay, it bridges that gap between two sentences. It is almost like bridging, like building a bridge, you know uh, between two cliffs, right? So that's what sentence connectors do. Okay, they bridge the sentences, the gap between the sentences. Now, some words you can use are however. Okay, however can be used instead of but. Okay, additionally. Okay, moreover, whereas, on the other hand, um, secondly, apparently. All of these words connect sentences. Okay, it gives sentence meaning. We discussed this in the writing module as well when we had the writing seminar, the webinar, right? About sentence connectors. So it is very important while you speak that you connect your sentences so that you achieve fluency. Okay? All right. The next, there's always a starting problem when we have to introduce ourselves. This is very generic and it cuts across people of all countries and nations in the world. Okay. You cannot properly introduce yourself. Okay. You don't know what to say. Okay. There is so much about you and about your life that you just don't know where to start and where to finish. Okay. So, in that scenario, it's always better to practice an introduction. Okay. What all you can add to introduce yourself, especially in an IELTS speaking exam. All right. You can start off with your name and where you're from. Okay. Then you can go down to what you work as, where you work. Okay. You can explain about your job, and then you can talk about your education. And if you've got some time, you can include your hobbies and interests. Okay. You can structure your introduction in this manner so that you don't go blank. You don't know what to speak of, right? And remember, this round is for 4 to 5 minutes. Okay. So you need to keep time in check. Okay. You need to answer all those questions and you need to have time as your buddy, right? Uh, you always need to keep a track of time. Okay, always. The speaking test is something that makes time very important. Okay, so remember, practice a self introduction. Okay, if you're unsure of it, but don't memorize it. Okay, there's a stark difference between practicing and memorizing. Okay, you memorize something, you know you will actually say the exact same words which you memorized, and that IELTS examiner who's listening to you, he or she is not stupid. They'll know a memorized answer when they hear one. And it is, it makes no sense to memorize something because you don't know what questions are coming in the first place. So what's the point of memorizing your answers? But practicing is important. Okay, practice as many questions as you can, as many self introductions as you can. Okay, always remember. So remember these tips. Talk formally but naturally. Okay, don't talk too fast. Don't use heavy words. Okay, always use sentence connectors. Okay, relax and be honest, and practice your introductions and the entire test, but don't memorize it. Okay, all right. Now, if you have any questions, you can, post it at the end of the video. Okay, at the end of the webinar. Okay, so moving on to part two. All right, am I going too fast? Can you give me a yes or a no very quickly? Am I going too fast? Nope. Okay, great. Okay, now moving on to part two. Now, okay, thank you, Shoaib. Okay, now moving on to part two. This part is where a lot of students get scared. Okay, and they've got to be scared because they are getting a topic that they have no idea what it is, and they have to talk on the brink. It's like pick and speak, right? You don't get enough time to prepare. So what do you do in this juncture? Okay, part two is a very interesting part of the IELTS speaking test. Okay, it's for about 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, and you will be given a task card on which the topic is written. Okay, and you'll be given a nice sheet of paper and a pencil. Now you will have to talk about this topic for 2 minutes. Okay, but before that, you get 1 minute to take down notes. Now, this 1 minute is crucial. Okay, I'll be explaining it as we move further down. Okay, and at the end of after you've spoken, the examiner might wrap up this round with a couple more questions, which is going to last another minute. Okay, so these are called rounding up questions. Okay, all right. Now let's look at an example. And by the end of the next slide, you will have a better understanding as to how to approach the speaking exam, the part two of the speaking test. Okay. Now, for example, describe a friend who you are really close to. Now, these are the points that you need to address. Okay. You should say who that friend is. How long has he or she been friends with you? How often you get together? And what makes him or her special? Now, you have these four sub questions about the topic. Now, this itself presents a framework for you. You have 2 minutes. You can divide your time based on these questions. Say there are four questions, okay? A generic division of time would be 30 seconds for each, okay? You could divide your time that way. Or if you feel, that some questions need more explanation, you can give more time to those. Okay, for instance, who that friend is. This is not going to take more than 10 or 12 seconds, right? And again, you have to be descriptive. Okay, you're not just going to say the name and let it go. Okay, who that friend is, you can't just, say, okay, Barid. That's not your answer. You have to be descriptive. Okay, you have to say, oh, this is a friend who I've known for a long time in my life. Okay, or this is a friend who I've known ever since childhood. Okay, you can start from there and then, you know, uh, tell the examiner his name and then say where you met him, how you met him. All right, then you can move on to the next question. So that is how you answer. You need to be descriptive. Okay, you really need to be descriptive. Okay, now how long has he or she been friends with you? Again, this question can, can last about, again, 10 to 12 seconds. Okay, uh, what do you do when you get together? Okay, or how often do you get together? Okay, you can again, say that, oh, I personally, like to meet him every week, but sometimes, he is busy with his work and we decide to meet on government holidays or any day on the weekday, any day of the week, any random day of the week, etc. So you can again, stretch out and answer this way. Okay, being descriptive is the key. I'm repeating myself. Okay, it's very important, being descriptive. Now, uh, so what do you do before you jump into answering the questions? You have been given a sheet of paper and a pencil. Okay, you need to take down notes. Now, when you're taking down notes, make sure you don't write essays on that paper. Okay, you need to be very short with your notes because you only get 1 minute, okay, to take down notes. All right, so when you're taking down notes, who that friend is, just write one word or two words and leave it at that, so that once you look at that pointer, you will understand what you speak. Right, okay, so be very short with your notes. Okay, because you only get 1 minute of time. Right, now once you have finished jotting down all these questions, remember one thing. The One of the, other things that is important, as a criteria for your scoring, is task achievability. Okay, we discussed this in the writing exam as well, in the writing module. Right, uh, what is task achievability? Are you answering all the questions that are asked? Okay, so that is what the examiner is going to examine you, all right, or evaluate you on. Okay, whether you are touching up on each of these questions. Have all these questions been answered? That is very important. Okay, so make sure when you're making notes, okay, you're answering all these questions that are asked. Okay, so two main pointers: task achievability. Okay, answer all the questions that are asked. Second, be descriptive. Okay, in your answers, be descriptive and don't answer in a word or in a word or two or a couple of words. Okay, it does not work. All right, now let's look at some tips, some more tips. Like I said, don't write long notes. Okay, second, we discussed that as well. All questions pertaining to the task need to be answered. Now here's another thing you can do. You can divide your time for each sub question. Okay, like I said, the first question might take 10 seconds, the second might take 15, 20 seconds, according to your wish as to how much you want to speak about that. Okay, now, third, don't rush into answering. Okay, think for about 5 seconds. Just relax for like 5 seconds before you start writing on that sheet of paper. Okay, relax. Don't feel nervous. Okay, some people, when they feel nervous, they start fumbling or they start tapping the table, right, or they start shaking their leg. All these are a sign of, all these are signs of nervousness. Avoid that. Please avoid that. Okay, relax. That examiner is not going to eat you. Okay, and there is no failing in IELTS, right? So whatever score you're getting will actually tell you your proficiency. And here's a better thing: you can retake IELTS whenever you want. So if you are unsure about your performance, you can always, you know, give it another go. Okay, so relax. All of the questions that come in the IELTS speaking test in part 1, 2, and 3, all of them are generic questions. What do I mean by generic? They are they are questions pertaining to any individual. Any and every individual would have experienced that situation at least once in his or her life. So these are the types of questions that are coming in. Nobody's going to ask you the gravitational pull of the earth. Okay? So don't worry about that. It's all generic. Okay? So relax about it. Again, don't try fancy words. Okay? Some people like to do that, especially when they have no idea what that word means or they're confused about the context. Okay? This happens a lot. So try and be as natural as possible. As natural. Okay? And another thing that I've seen students complain is, what if I have a particular opinion on a topic, and what if the examiner does not agree with me? Well, the examiner is not there to judge on what you believe in. The examiner is there to judge you on how you speak. Okay? So, whatever political affiliations you have, whatever you think of, you know, anything, all right, your opinion is yours. All right? That examiner is not going to judge you. Even if you say Donald Trump is a wonderful president, she is not going to cut your marks. Okay? She's not going to judge you. She's not, she's only there to judge how you speak and how well you know English, how well you structure your sentences, how fluent you are. Okay? This is what they're going to judge you on, not the other aspects. All right? Now, moving on, again, fluency. Again, you need to start connecting your sentences, okay, with different kinds of conjunctions and adverbs. Okay, sentence connectors, connect them. This you will have to learn, okay, how to do. You cannot speak in points, okay. There cannot be an abrupt halt to your sentences. They need to continue. They need to have that flow, okay. So achieve that flow. All right. So always use sentence connectors. All right. Don't worry about your accent. Okay. Whatever accent you have, whatever you're comfortable with, use it. Okay. It could be that stereotypical Indian accent, does not matter. It's yours. Okay. There is no shame in talking the way you do. Okay. You don't have to put up a show. You don't have to, show off that you may know another accent. Okay. So if you're comfortable with your accent, go ahead. Okay. Nobody's going to judge you on accents. Okay. Unless you pronounce each words correctly, each of those words correctly. Okay. Of whatever you're saying. All right. So always remember, don't worry about your accent. Speak naturally. That is what naturally means. Right. Natural speaking is also speaking with your own natural accent. Okay. And don't pause for too long. Okay. This is a little hard because you always have that fear of losing topics, losing topics of discussion. What am I going to say now? Okay. There might be abrupt halts. You might not know what to talk about. That is why you have that sheet of paper. Okay. That is why you're writing down, you're taking down notes before the test begins. I mean, before the part two, the discussion begins of the topic, right? So don't try and think a lot because everything is on paper, and you can refer to that, to those points while you're speaking. Okay, you can refer to those points. Okay, if you ever get stuck. Okay, just pick up your paper, look at the point, go ahead. Okay, now there are two things that may happen in this round and the next round. One, if you are falling under time, okay, if you finish talking about the topic before the time runs out, the examiner is going to prompt you to speak more. This is the prompt. She'd go like, go on. Okay. So when she gives you that prompt, it means you can speak more about that topic. Okay. And how can you go about this? You just take a look at the last question, okay, and add a few extra points to it. Okay. Just add a few extra points to it. Something that just came into your head, and just say it. Okay, about that last question. All right. Second, this is the second. This is the first scenario. The second scenario is when you have overshot. That is, you have exceeded your time. The examiner will interrupt you, and she will say, "Oh, thank you. Let's move on." Now, when that happens, don't worry. Okay, she's not going to cut your marks. She's just indicating to you that the time is done. You have spoken for 2 minutes and you have actually overshot. Okay, so it's nothing negative. All right, so if she cuts you short, does not mean that you are doing a bad job. It just means you've run out of time. Okay, all right, so these are the part two tips. Okay, always remember, don't write long notes. Okay, then all questions are generic. Okay, and all questions need to be answered. Task achievability. Divide your time for each question. All right, don't rush, don't feel nervous. Okay, don't try fancy words, especially when you don't know the meaning. Don't worry about your accent, use your natural accent. Okay, don't worry about the examiner judging you. She won't. Okay, she won't have an opinion about your political beliefs or your religious affiliations, all that. That's the examiner won't even consider that. Okay, and don't pause for too long. Okay, so these are all the tips that will be necessary for you to practice the part two of speaking. Okay, you can ace it, guys. You can ace this part. Okay, if you are confident and if you know what you're saying and you've written down proper points, relevant points, nobody can stop you. Okay, all right, so we can have a question and answer round after the webinar, so keep your questions ready if you have any. All right, okay, moving on to part three. All right, now part three is a discussion round. Okay, and this is going to be for 4 to 5 minutes. Okay, that's the duration. Now, in the discussion round, it's a one-on-one discussion with the examiner, and she's going to ask you questions based on the topic that you've spoken about. Okay, so it's either going to be directly related to that topic, or it's going to have a little bit of a connection to it. Okay, it might be loosely connected to it or directly connected. You can never tell. Okay, now in part three of the discussion round, you get 4 to 5 minutes. And again, when you're answering questions, you need to be descriptive. Okay, you need to be descriptive. So expand your answers whenever you're asked a question, expand them and explain them along with examples. Okay, giving examples is very, it comes in handy. Okay, it is very important, because if you don't know what else to say, you can just shove in an example in that talk that you're having, right? That will give you more time to think of other points, all right, to talk of. All right, so you get about 4 to 5 minutes, and here the examiner will control time very strictly. Okay, so if you are overshooting, she's just going to stop you. Okay, so don't worry if she stops you. It doesn't mean that you're answering wrongly. It just means that your time is up. Okay, so she will keep a very strict note of time. Now, let's look at some examples. Okay, now this is pertaining to the topic that we discussed in part two, okay, about that friend. Now, based on that, here are a few questions. What makes a good friend according to you? Okay, what do friends generally do to have a good time in your country? Okay, In your country means where you live, all right? Okay. How often do you meet your friends? Do you have sleepovers at your friend's house? If yes, then what do you do? How do you resolve differences with your friends? So these are all the questions that come in part three. And as you can see, they are very descriptive in nature. You have to describe them, okay? You have to stretch as much as you can, okay? 4 to 5 minutes. So I would say a good 30, 40 seconds for each, answer would suffice, okay? But if your examiner prompts you to go on, then you answer, then you expand on your answer even further by giving a little bit of an explanation and an example with it. So that's how you go about this topic. Now let's take a look at this. Like, what makes a good friend according to you? It's such a generic question. Everybody has a requirement about a friend. Okay. Some people think their friends need to be funny. Some people think that there needs to be a connect with them. All right. Some people think that there need to be at least 3 to 4 qualities that are common. Okay. So there are so many things that make your friends close to you. Okay. So you just have to explain what makes a good friend to you. Okay. You may have other, criteria. All right. You can discuss about that. All right. And make sure you stretch these answers. Okay. As much as you can. All right. Again, being very descriptive, be descriptive. Okay. And give examples whenever necessary. Okay. All right. Now let's look at a few tips on part three. Listen to the question. Okay. If you do not understand the question, you won't be achieving the task. That is, you won't be answering the question. So whenever you don't understand the question, or you have missed out some words, or you didn't hear the examiner correctly, always ask for clarification. There's no shame in asking for clarification. It does not mean you don't understand English. It just means you missed out a word or two, which is very normal. Okay. You could say, pardon, or could I have that last part again? Okay. So in this way, even the examiner knows that you know how to ask for a pardon, or you know how to ask her to repeat the question in a polite way. Okay. All right. So always ask for a clarification when you're in doubt. Okay. But listen to the question. All right. That is very important. Don't ask for clarifications every single time she asks you a question. Okay. Just once or twice is fine. Answer to the point. Okay. That means you need to address the question that is to be answered. Okay. You need to answer to the point, but be descriptive. Okay. Don't finish your answers quickly. Don't give one word or two-word answers. Okay. It's not going to work. Now, again, give examples. That's your next tip. I've explained this to you too. Don't fret if the examiner abruptly stops you when you're speaking. Okay. It does not mean that you are going wrong. It just means you have run out of time. Okay. Don't use monosyllables. Okay. We do this a lot. Don't we do this a lot? I mean, whenever you ask a question which has a one word answer, right? We either go yes or no, or mm-hmm, or uh-uh. Don't use all these words. These sounds and words, very dangerous. Okay, very rude, very dangerous. Okay, don't use them. All right, avoid as much as you can. You can answer yes and no, but you'll need to then expand on your answer. Okay, all right. And the last one is, as what I said repeatedly, always keep your answers descriptive. Okay, all right. So this is what your speaking test is all about. Okay, it was a short webinar, but this is what the speaking test entails. Now, what do I have for you next is an assignment. Now, here's what I want you to do. To get a better understanding as to how to go about the speaking test, practice is necessary. So, take this assignment, okay? You could ask one of your friends, okay, or your relatives or your family member to question you, and you practice your speaking skills, all right, by narrating them the answers that they're seeking, okay? You can also record yourself, while you're speaking so that you know where you're going wrong, okay? So take this one, take this assignment. You can record it and you can send it to me. All right. So I could give you, a little bit of an assessment as to what you can do and what you can't do. Okay. All right. Along with this, we have something else. Change Institutes International has come up with this new event called the One-on-One Assessment. Okay. Now we are conducting one-on-one online mock tests. Okay. So this is going to last till September 10th of 2020. Okay. And what you will be getting here is individual attention because it's all one on one. All right. There's no classroom. Okay. We are going to give you customized feedback and we're going to train you as to how to talk better. We're going to discuss more tips and tricks about the speaking test. This is only for the speaking test because you may find a lot of material online regarding the reading test, the listening test, and the writing test. But getting something on the speaking test is next to impossible. The only thing that you can do is watch videos of two people speaking, but you cannot participate. This is an opportunity for you to participate and find out where you stand. Okay, so for just rupees 999, okay, all you have to do is make that payment and you get 7 hours, okay, of this course for three different sessions. That's 2 hours, 2 hours, and 1 hour in the end. Okay, and we get to practice different mock tests. We get you get personalized feedback. We correct you where you go wrong, etc., etc. Okay, so if you are interested, you can sign up for this. All you have to do is get in touch with me, all right, and I'll tell you the details. And that's about it, guys. All right, we have come to the end of the webinar. Now, I will wait for your questions. Do you have any questions? Anything at all pertaining to the speaking test? Any questions? Do we get a break in between the three tasks of speaking? No. It's a 15-minute test. Why do you need a break? No, no, you don't get breaks at all. Even in your entire IELTS test that is for 3 hours, the listening, reading, and writing test, you don't get a break. All at a stretch. Yes. 15 minutes is you sit in one room and you talk. Yeah, no breaks. Okay, any other question? That was a good question, by the way. You know, some people do have that question about breaks. Yeah, no problem. Any other question? Chandru, Barid, Asif, anyone? No? Let's say we are stuck while speaking in the second part. Okay. Now, Barid, where exactly would you say you would get stuck? I know in the second part, but give me an example. Okay, no thoughts pertaining to the topic. Okay. As I explained before, uh, the second part, the part two of the speaking test, will have different questions, right? Let me get that slide up again. One second. Okay. Part two, you're right there. Okay. So in this part two, you see that there are different questions lined up, right? There is a very little opportunity for you to get stuck because these are direct questions. Make sure, don't forget that you get that sheet of paper where you can make notes. Now, this is where you make notes based on these questions, okay? So that you don't get stuck, all right? Make notes pertaining to each question and what you're going to talk about. Just write one word, okay? That will, make your mind click and you know what to speak of, okay? One word pertaining to one point. Say, for example, how long has he or she been friends with you, okay? Childhood, okay? That one pointer will make you realize that, okay, this is what I have to say, okay? Or if you want to say, how often do you get together? Okay, what do you do when you get together? I'm sorry. What do you do when you get together? So you can write, movies or, you know, gaming parlors or hookah joints, whatever, right? So once you write that keyword that you're going to talk about, you will know what else to say. Okay. So making notes in that 1 minute is the key. If you can make proper notes pertaining to all these questions, you won't get stuck. I guarantee you. Okay. But you need to learn how to make notes in 1 minute. Okay. So make sure your words are short. Okay. They're not sentences and paragraphs. Okay. Notes are short and they are very, like as soon as you look at them, you need to get an idea. Okay. They need to be very precise. All right. So practice that. Okay. The assignment question I've given you, practice that with a stopwatch. Okay. You might find it a little bit of a different experience than what you have been experiencing so far. Is that clear enough? And remember, guys, like this is a general topic. The questions are so general that everybody has faced that situation. It's only a 1 in a million possibility that you're going to be asked questions that, one question that, probably you have never had an acquaintance with. Okay. So always remember generic questions. Everybody would have faced that situation. All right. Friends, for example. Everybody has friends. Everybody has a reason why they have a friend. Everybody has a reason. I mean, everybody has a timeline of the friendship. Everybody does something special with their friends. Okay. So it's all generic. Okay. And let's look at the assignment topic as well. Let's see how generic that is. Okay. Describe something you own, which is very important to you. Come on. We all own something that way, right? It could be a motorcycle or a car or an Avengers ring that I wear, right? It's very important to us. All these little things. You just say where you got it from, okay? You should know where you got it from, how long you have had it, what you use it for, okay? And explain why it is important to you. Generic, okay? Again, making notes about this will get you to answer this, to go about this part two in a much more effective way. Cool, buddy. Anything else? All right. Any other questions from anybody else? All good? Okay. Looks like we're all good. All righty. All right, fellas. Thank you very much for attending this webinar, and we are going to have more in future. Remember about this one-on-one assessment event. Okay, it's till September 10th. Okay, for rupees 999, you can get a free online one-on-one mock speaking module. All right, with Change Institutes International. All right, you can sign up by getting in touch with me, and trust me, you won't regret it. Okay, I will be individually taking your assessment. All right. Okay, fellas, thank you very much for attending the webinar. You have a lovely day. It is a Sunday, so do something cool. Okay. All right. See you, fellas. Bye bye.